Good day, everybody. My name is Steve Prziborowski, and I want to welcome you to episode 2 of Reach for the Firefighter Badge. Episode 2 is going to cover 10 must-do things to become a firefighter. If you haven't had a chance to watch episode 1, I encourage you to go watch episode 1 on my YouTube channel. Episode 1 covered why do you want to become a firefighter. This next episode, episode 2, is going to cover 10 must-do things to become a firefighter. A collection of ideas and suggestions that I've put together over the years that I think can benefit anybody across the country that wants to become a firefighter. So without further ado, let's start off. Now, just as a reminder, my 2 websites have a lot of free information here. I run 2 websites. My first one's my promotional preparation website, which has a lot of officer development and leadership related information on it. Code3firetraining.com. And then I also run an entry-level website, ChabotFire.com. ChabotFire.com is for the Chabot College Fire Technology program up in Hayward, California. So I still teach there part-time, and I still run the website, and I offer a lot of stuff on the free stuff links. So whether you're currently a firefighter or you want to become a firefighter, there's a lot of valuable information on the free stuff links on both. Here's just a little nugget, as I mentioned a little bit on the first episode. If you want to become a firefighter, you got to prepare for the position. Yes, prepare for the position, not just the test. So what you got to do is you've got to really focus on not just trying to pass the test, which is important. And we'll talk about the hiring process and the testing process in future episodes a lot more. But for right now, your focus is becoming a firefighter. Then you got to learn as much as you can about becoming a firefighter. So that's why, even if you're not a current firefighter, my code3firetraining.com website has some entry-level stuff, not as much as the ChabotFire.com does, but it also has a lot of information that can make you a better firefighter once you get on the job, not to mention a better captain, chief officer, or whatever. So a lot of good resources for both. Now, the webinars series that I'm doing, or vlogs, or whatever you want to call them, are all based on 2 of the books that I've published. I've had 3 books published so far, but 2 of them focus on entry-level preparation. The Future Firefighters Preparation Guide, #1, and then Reach for the Firefighter Badge. Both of them are distinctly different. Both of them are available off my websites in either ebook digital form or hard copy form, or on Amazon, or the usual links to find stuff, iTunes and so forth. But again, lots of valuable information I think that can help focus you in the right direction. But let's get started. For this segment of the episodes, I want to focus on 10 must-do things to become a firefighter. Now, I say must-do, but realize things can change. Not everything that works for me maybe works for you, and that is just normal. You're going to hopefully meet a lot of people over your course of wanting to become a firefighter, people from around the country, people of all different ranks, people from different experiences, different backgrounds, and they're all going to offer advice. Not every piece of advice may be valuable for you, but take every little bit with a grain of salt. Learn something from everybody. Learn something from me. Learn something from the next person. I encourage people to go down rabbit holes, meaning, like I shared my websites earlier, I'm not the answer to everything, but if you maybe check out one of my websites or both of them, hopefully there'll be some rabbit holes that you'll find through maybe some of the links that I provide, or some of the other articles that I provide, or whatever it is. So 10 must-do things to become a firefighter, and this is based on an article that I wrote for firerescue1.com. Speaking of rabbit holes, firerescue1.com is a great website. It has a lot of awesome content on there for entry-level firefighters, all the way up to fire chief. So I encourage you to go to firerescue1.com to check out all the free stuff. And if you go to the popular articles page, this article that I wrote a few years ago was the #1 most read article. And as the time of publication, June of 2020, that I'm putting this episode together, it still is the #1 most read article of all time. Doesn't mean it's the greatest article of all time, but it seems to be the most read article. So there's, I guess, hopefully some valuable information to share. So 10 must-do things to become a firefighter. First item, become an EMT. Now, when you start in the process of becoming a firefighter, you may run into a stone wall very quickly by realizing that, hey, I want to become a firefighter. So you may go down to your local firehouse, knock on the door and say, hey, hire me. Well, it doesn't work like that. You got to fill out an application, got to go through a process. A lot of departments really only require some basic things to become a firefighter, meaning to apply to become a firefighter. Most departments require you to be 18 years old, at least, high school graduate and or GED. And you really, that's about it. But there are a lot of departments that do require you to have gone through EMT certification training. So even if they don't require you to become an EMT, it's to your benefit to become an EMT, because most firefighters around the country, if you go to any firehouse around the country, on the fire engines, the fire trucks, the ambulances, whatever vehicles they staff, you're going to probably find everyone at the minimum level of EMT. EMT is typically at least 100 hours of training, whereas paramedic is at least usually 1,000 hours of training, but most firefighters are at least EMTs. Why? Because if you look at our statistics, most of our calls, typically 60, 70, 80% of our calls across the country, regardless of where you're at, are EMS, emergency medical service related calls. Thus, that's why fire departments typically staff EMTs and or paramedics on their apparatus. So they usually call them firefighter slash EMT or firefighter slash paramedic and so forth. So even if a department doesn't require you to be an EMT, they may make you go through the EMT program once you get hired, or to actually get hired. They may not require it just to take the test. So the benefit of having your EMT, which you can usually find at a local college or maybe a private school, is that a lot of departments do require it. That's probably the most number one requirement besides, 18 years old and high school diploma. If a department is going to require you to have some type of certification or education or training, it's usually going to be EMT. Why? Well, like I said, it's 100 plus hours, and for a department to put you through EMT training, it's probably they're going to have to, spend maybe a month or so of putting you through EMT training, which is not a big deal. It can be done, but sometimes it's a lot easier to hire someone that already is an EMT, plus it's cheaper as well too. So becoming an EMT obviously allows you to take more tests, and obviously makes you a little bit more marketable. Plus it gives you a taste of what you're getting into. Because as I mentioned in episode number 1, if you want to become a firefighter, fight fire and save lives, which is a cool and bitchin' thing to do, again, you're going to realize very quickly that the average firefighter does not fight fire and save lives on a regular basis. Most of their calls are EMS calls, and most of the EMS calls are not critical in nature. That's not a bad thing. I mean, that's a good thing that we're not having more critical things occurring to people, because God forbid, we're here to help people and we don't want to see bad things happen to people. But we still respond to EMS calls. Thus, it gives you a taste. So I've seen a lot of people go through EMT training, and then they get through the EMT training and they go, you know what? If this is what 60 to 70 to 80% of a firefighter's job is, EMT work, and again, not critical life-saving EMT. I mean, probably life-saving stuff is like 10% of being an EMT or a paramedic. Most of it's routine stuff. There's a lot of people that have actually changed their course after going through EMT school. Maybe they just want to go into the medical field of becoming a paramedic or a nurse or a doctor or something else. But you may find out that you don't like the EMS stuff. And I'd rather have you find that out during EMT school than once you get hired by the fire department. And then you go, wait a second, this isn't for me. Maybe the blood, the guts, the hand holding on the flip side. So becoming an EMT, I think, is very beneficial in a lot of ways. And obviously you can Google EMT and find some programs, hopefully in your area. So next, I encourage you to volunteer your time. Now, most fire departments don't require you to have any volunteer experience. And I mean volunteer firefighter experience or just volunteer in general experience. Most departments don't require that. Just like most departments, don't require EMT, but they may say highly desirable qualification. Well, volunteering, think about it. If you want to become a firefighter, you want to become a civil servant, because we are civil servants serving our community. Just like anybody else that works for a city government or a state government or a county government, the federal government, we are civil servants. And I think a lot of people tend to forget that. So if you're volunteering your time now, usually you have an understanding of what civil service, and maybe not civil service by itself, but serving others is, and giving back, paying it forward. A lot of people think they have to become a volunteer firefighter to become a firefighter. Well, think about this. Yeah, being a volunteer gives you a lot of great experience that you can take to the next level of a career firefighter. But in all reality, it's tough to find volunteer positions, especially in the big metropolitan areas. Like I live in San Jose, and the whole San Francisco Bay Area is a very multi-million population area. There's not a lot of agencies that have volunteer firefighters. Some of the bigger departments may have what they call like volunteer programs or reserve firefighter programs, auxiliary firefighter programs, cadet firefighter programs, where they're still volunteer, but they're not volunteer like you may think. The majority of the United States fire departments are, firefighters are still volunteer. Once you get out of the big metropolitan areas, mostly protected by volunteer firefighters. So it's great if you can get the experience, but it's not as easy. And, whereas there may be thousands of people or maybe even hundreds applying for a couple firefighter paid positions at a department, volunteer positions still get a few hundred applicants. A couple of years ago, we had a volunteer firefighter recruitment for the department I work at. I think we're hiring about 10 volunteers at the time. We had like 400 applicants. It's survival of the fittest. Don't just think you can walk up to a firehouse and, hey, knock, knock. Hey, I want to be a volunteer. Sign me up. It's not that easy. It's very competitive. So it's great to become a volunteer firefighter if you can find it. Now, again, how do you know? You have the internet at your fingertips. You can do a lot of Google searching to find out. When in doubt, knock on the door of your local firehouse. If you haven't done that, visit the website of your local fire department, wherever you live. Take a look in neighboring areas. Maybe the community you live in doesn't have volunteers or auxiliaries, reserves, explorers, whatever you call it. But maybe the next door neighboring community does, or the community over here or over there. Some departments, we used to require volunteers to live just in the 7 cities that we serve. Well, because of the lack of people that wanted to step up to be volunteers, and I know I just contradicted myself. Yeah, think about that. We used to have hundreds of volunteers, which we did. But the challenging part is, one of the things that we had to change was, we used to require volunteers just to be 18 years old, high school diploma. Thus, we get so many applications. But because the laws don't discriminate, what I mean by that is the laws don't discriminate. A full-time career firefighter has to have the exact same training as a volunteer firefighter. Let that soak in. A full-time firefighter has to have the same training by law as a volunteer. Well, obviously, if they're full-time, we can provide the training because they're on duty typically, 56 hours a week, give or take. Well, volunteers are usually volunteering above and beyond their family, their primary job, everything else, and they don't have a lot of time to spare. So because of that challenge to provide a lot of training to our volunteers, we actually had to revamp our volunteer program to actually require a Firefighter 1 Academy from a local college. So to be a volunteer in our department, we also, instead of training you as we used to do, we actually now require EMT or paramedic, and also having completed a Firefighter 1 Academy from one of the many local colleges in the state. Like in California, there's about 50 different colleges that actually have Firefighter 1 Academies, which I encourage you to do, and I'll talk about that here shortly. So that's just to become a volunteer. Now, because of that, Firefighter 1 EMT, we reduced that couple hundred applicants to about less than 50 applicants for the 10 positions, good odds. But we also had to increase, because there was less people out there with Firefighter 1, we actually had to increase our mileage requirements. So instead of requiring someone to live in our 7 communities that we serve, we actually expanded that to within I think it was a 30-minute response time, just to expand the pool. Now you may go, wait a second, 30 minutes to be a volunteer, that doesn't make sense. Well, in our department, every one of our firehouses is fully staffed with career personnel. We really don't need volunteers, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, because we have a lot of good, long-standing volunteers that have done an awesome job, continue to do an awesome job, but we don't necessarily need them to respond to the calls, because when someone calls 911, again, most of our calls are EMS, our engines and our trucks that are staffed with paramedics and EMTs, they handle the calls. We dispatch our volunteer firefighters out for first alarm working fire incidents, whether it's a vegetation fire, whether it's a structure fire. But for our 15 stations, that may be once a week, once every 2 weeks. So our volunteer firefighters don't get a lot of call outs, because again, they're only getting called out to first alarm working fire incidents, which we don't get a lot of. So we look at our volunteer program as more of a career development program, sort of like a farm team concept. If you understand, like sports and the minor league baseball concept of, no one goes usually right from high school to the pros. They usually play minor league baseball, A ball, double A, triple A. And we sort of look at our volunteer, or, some departments call them reserve, like I mentioned, or cadets. It's a great career development reserve program. Now, hopefully we're fortunate to hire the ones that we want to hire, but the challenging part is, when we're bringing on a volunteer that's got EMT, Firefighter 1, and whatever other experience, if we don't pick them up, odds are somebody else will pick them up, which is fine, because it's still nice to have folks that went through our system as volunteers. If we can't get them, it's nice to see them get jobs with other agencies, and then hopefully we have them leave on a good note. And it's good to have that knowing that we did something good for somewhere else. Now, let's take the volunteer firefighter aspect out of it. You may not be able to find that volunteer firefighter position in your area. I get it. But there's maybe some creative ways to do it. Like I said, you may find the department like mine and many others that maybe have a 30-minute response zone. We're not expecting you to respond to calls. What we encourage our volunteers to do is actually do ride-alongs at the firehouse, be the fourth member on an engine, be the fifth member on a truck. Because again, if you're only getting one tone out every couple of weeks, sometimes more, sometimes less, that's hard to keep your skills, your energy, your inspiration, your motivation up. So that's why we encourage our volunteers, and we actually require them, no, you can respond, but the odds of you responding in time are probably very slim. Get to a firehouse, do a ride along as much as you want. That's where you can get the most experience, because then you're going to be with a fire crew on a regular basis, whether it's a 12-hour shift that you work with them, the full 24 hours like they work, whatever it is, get out there. I've seen a lot of departments that sometimes their volunteer aspect or program is just do one 24-hour shift a week or a month. Think about this. You may find a volunteer fire department 3, 4, 5, 6 hours away. It's far-fetched, but they're out there and they're doing these mass recruitments to find someone or some folks that will come in and just do one shift a month. Think about that. You live 4 hours away. All you got to do is basically spend the gas money to be, I know you're going, why would I spend money to be a volunteer? Well, for your resume, to build your resume, gain some valuable experience, to network, to build some relationships, all those good reasons. But yeah, you live 4 hours away, so you drive 4 hours, gas money, wear and tear on your vehicle. You do your 24-hour shift, and then you come on home. It's experience in the resume. 24 hours today does not seem like a lot, but let's say it's 24 hours a week. Well, 24 hours this week is not a lot, but then times that by 4 weeks for a month, that's almost 100 hours. And then now 12 months, that's 1,200 hours. Now you have that on your resume, 1,200 hours of volunteer experience. That shows a lot of commitment. It may not be the community you live in, but it's some community. So don't think you have to do it in your own community. Now, switching gears, there's a lot of non-fire service volunteer experience out there. I mean, there's a lot of organizations that are always looking for volunteers. If you don't know where to start, the city you live in, the community you live in, probably if you go to their website, is always looking for volunteers. Parks and Recreation, library programs, maybe not fire, but maybe the police department. Something is better than nothing. And if you can't find it at your local city, maybe it's your county that you live in. Or there's a lot of places like the American Red Cross. There's a lot of places like, I'm drawing a blank right now, Red Cross, Habitat for Humanity to help build houses. There's a lot of good organizations and churches, schools. There is no one that's better than the other. A lot of people say, well, I have to be a volunteer firefighter. No, you don't. Or what sounds better, Steve, volunteering at my church or volunteering at my kid's school or volunteering as a big brother, volunteering with whatever, Habitat for Humanity? There is no right, there is no wrong. Any volunteer experience is better than nothing. Think about that. Any volunteer experience is better than nothing. So you may think, well, I only volunteer 1 hour a week. Now, a lot of people say, I don't have time to volunteer. Well, think about this. You may have a full-time job, family, and everything else. You don't, you're strapped for time. You maybe can't do a 24-hour shift at a fire department or even an 8 hours, but let's look at the math. Maybe you can only do 1 hour a week. Hey, if you can't figure out 1 hour a week, and sometimes volunteering doesn't mean you physically go somewhere. Maybe it's something that you do on your computer. Maybe you help someone out with tech support or Skype or FaceTime or Zoom. Maybe you're helping tutor someone. There's a lot of things that you can do if you get creative about it. So you may be able to do 1 hour a week. Well, 1 hour a week isn't much today. But then after 4 weeks, 1 month, there's 4 hours of volunteer time. New math. But then that's not a lot. But then the next thing you know, 2 months go by, 3 months go by, 4 months go by, the hours tick up. And then maybe you can do a little more here, a little more there. Again, it's not about the most amount of volunteer hours, but if you walk into your firefighter interview, some fire departments do ask questions such as, tell us about your community service experience, or tell us about your volunteer experience. And they're not necessarily caring about fire, just non-fire is sometimes better because it's more creative, it's more unique. I don't have any volunteer time. I'm too busy. I work full time and I got a family and kids. Okay, the last thing that oral board wants to hear or that fire chief wants to hear is excuses. If you want something bad enough, you got to go out and get it. I know people, whether they're single, they're married, they have significant others, no kids, one kid, 10 kids. I know people of all backgrounds that if they want something bad enough, they know how to do it and they know how to get what they want. So it can be done if you set your mind to it. It's all about time management, planning, and organization. So I think that's your key to success, is trying to figure out how you can make it work. Because trust me, if you can't make it work now, how do you think you're going to be as a firefighter? Because really, becoming a firefighter is a full-time job, and it's a lot of juggling of a lot of different things to get where you want to get. So volunteering your time, anything is better than nothing. Don't worry about what it is. Just have something to put in your resume. Leave it at that. All right, number 3, take fire technology classes or fire science classes, whatever a college fire technology program calls them. If you look at what fire departments are requiring to become a firefighter, I don't know of any fire departments, I'll say that. I don't know of any fire departments that require anyone to have a 4-year degree or a 2-year degree. Do some searching on the internet. I don't know of any departments that require a 4-year or 2-year degree. Why? Because if they require a 4-year degree or a 2-year degree, what they end up doing is limiting their applicant pool. Most departments don't want to have a narrow applicant pool. They want to have a large applicant pool where they can pick the best candidates they feel would be the best fit for their department and their community. So why should I take fire technology classes? Well, I made a comment earlier, and I'll probably make this comment in every one of the upcoming episodes of these vlogs, as you call them. Prepare for the position, not just the test. How do you prepare for the position? Take fire technology classes. It doesn't mean you have to get your 2-year degree in fire science. Now, maybe you just take some classes, but a lot of fire technology programs, there's the benefit of fire technology programs that usually found at colleges, obviously, is that a lot of them have EMT programs. Some may have paramedic programs also, so there's an added bonus. Some may also have a Firefighter 1 Academy. I mean, if you can find a fire technology degree program that gives you a 2-year degree and you get your EMT, your paramedic, and maybe your Firefighter 1 Academy out of it, you're golden. Again, you're not guaranteed a job, but the benefit is that you've just found the 3 biggest requirements that most employers require. If you do a search on the internet of what fire departments are looking for in minimum qualifications just to apply, it's usually EMT or paramedic or academy, Firefighter 1 Academy, besides 18 years old, besides high school diploma. EMT, paramedic, Firefighter 1 are usually the 3 biggest things that most departments, if they're going to require anything. Now, I've seen some departments that say highly desirable to have, say, 15 college units, and sometimes 15 college units in fire science or fire technology or fire protection. They're all pretty much the same. Some may say 30 units, 45 units, just as highly desirable. Well, if they put highly desirable in there, it doesn't mean you have to have it. It doesn't mean you're going to get a job if you have those, because a lot of times the people that get hired don't have any of that stuff. And the reason they got hired was not because they had it or didn't have it. It was because of their personality. Because as we go on, you're going to really realize, because I'm going to hammer this out almost time and time again, is we don't hire resumes, we hire people. We don't hire resumes, we hire people. People with great character traits, people with a good, positive, can-do attitude, people that we would love to have join our family, meaning the fire family, people that we would love to have serve our community, people that are nice, people that have positive attitudes, as I mentioned, people that are not jerks, people that are not assholes. You know, we don't need those folks on the fire department. So we hire people. So again, you may go, why bother with fire technology classes? Because you're preparing for the future. Yes, it's true that if a department doesn't require you to have that academy or education, they're going to put you through it. Like most departments, when they hire you, so they're going to probably put you through an academy, their own academy or a joint academy that's going to be anywhere from a month to maybe 6 months in length. They're going to teach you pretty much everything you need to know to be a safe beginner and start your probationary period. I mean, it's just very standard. Well, here's the thing to think about. If you have not taken a fire technology class at a 2-year college, you're going to realize this. You're going to learn more at the college than you will in the department. And you may go, what? Let's think about this. Most semester classes, so at a college, when they have a semester class is typically 54 to 60 hours. I can't remember the exact number. So if you take a semester class of anything, let's just say building construction or firefighter safety or fire behavior, you're going to take a semester class that's 54 to 60 hours, give or take. A lot of hours, yeah. But then think about this. If you go through your Firefighter One Academy, whether it's at the college or whether it's at the department that hires you, they're not going to give you 54 to 60 hours in that one subject. They're not going to give you 50 hours of training in any one subject. Their building construction training may be half a day. I've seen some departments that do 4 hours on building construction, or maybe a full day, 8 hours, or maybe 2 days. We've done like 3 days, 24 hours on building construction. And that's a lot by many department standards. It still isn't 54 to 60 though. Fire behavior. Some departments give you, half a day exposure to fire behavior, maybe a full day, and then they throw you out there on the nozzle expecting you to understand things. Well, how dare you enter a burning building? Yes, how dare you enter a burning building without having a good, awesome knowledge of fire behavior and building construction? Think about that. You're on the nozzle making entry into a building on fire. You better have a darn good understanding of building construction and fire behavior, because that's the stuff that's going to kill you if you're not aware of it. And you can't just say, well, my captain or my lieutenant or my chief is not going to let that happen to me. No, they're not going to. They're definitely there to keep you safe, but there's things they may not see. You being that first person making that entry on that nozzle may be the one that sees things before they do. It just happens sometimes. So again, you're going to learn more at the college getting your 2-year degree in fire technology than you ever will on the job. It's just, we don't have the time on the department, any department, to give you the same training. If we gave you the same training, you'd never get out of the academy. And when a department hires you, they need you out on a fire engine or a fire truck like yesterday, because they're usually hiring you after someone retired or left the department or got promoted. So, and it's costing them money to spend overtime on that position. So that's why they want to get you in and out to the stations as soon as possible. But taking fire technology classes, another benefit is that you get to network with other like-minded professionals. I mean, think about it. You're in a fire technology class at a college. There's 30, 40, 50 other students. Many of those students you may end up working with at some point in the future. Maybe not in the same department, maybe other departments. You're going to interact with these people when you're testing for departments. And these are your, hopefully, networks. This is your network that you're hopefully building for the future. I mean, I still stay in touch with a lot of friends that I took fire technology classes with years ago. It's just the way it works. So take the classes, and again, you may get exposed to jobs. Think about it. Your instructors at the college are usually working or retired firefighters. So there's a lot of benefits to doing that. Obviously, I'm a brick and mortar fan, but there's also online. You may live in an area that doesn't have any brick and mortar schools, so it may not be realistic for you to find a fire technology, fire science program within reason, but there's a ton of online programs out there. Just make sure you do your homework, do your research, buyer beware. There's a lot of good ones. There's a lot of shady ones out there that just want your money and you don't get quality instruction out of. But again, there's a lot of good resources out there if you do your homework. Number 4 must-do thing to become a firefighter: maintain a clean background and lifestyle. I'll talk more about background investigations in one of the future episodes. No one is perfect. Everyone's got skeletons in the closet. None of us can walk on water. So again, we're not perfect. We're not looking for the perfect person, because that person isn't out there. We want human beings, but we also don't want you to have a lot of baggage that's going to come along with you. So again, we'll talk more as we go in the future, but it doesn't hurt to maintain a clean background and lifestyle. Now, if you want some more information on each of these items that I'm sharing, again, I encourage you to go back to the link I previously shared, firerescue1.com. So if you go to firerescue1.com and Google 10 must-do things to become a firefighter, or Google my name, not Google it, on their website, do a search, this will come up and you get more information. But again, it doesn't hurt to maintain a clean background and lifestyle. Why? Because you're going to go through a background investigation and a psychological evaluation, more than likely, and you don't want to have a lot of those negative things in your past. But again, you're not perfect. We don't expect you to be perfect. But again, hopefully as people say, as long as things weren't done yesterday, hopefully time and distance helps shield things. Okay, next item. Number 5, understand all phases of the hiring process. To become a firefighter, as I mentioned, you don't just knock on the door of the firehouse and say, hey, hire me, put me on Big Red there. You got to go through an application process, maybe a written test, a physical ability test, an oral interview, background, medical exam. There's a lot of things that I sort of touched on in some of the other webinars that I've done, and I will touch on in the future in other webinars, vlogs, whatever we call these episodes. But again, understand all phases of the hiring process, because the whole hiring process could take months, if not years, depending on timing and depending on a number of other things. So again, do some homework, do some research. A lot of fire department websites have their hiring process components spelled out. I mean, most departments are pretty similar, but there is some variances sometimes. But for the most part, most departments, whether you're on the West Coast, East Coast, North, South part of the United States, are all pretty similar. Number 6, start taking firefighter tests. You can't get hired if you don't apply. And to apply means you have to fill out the application. You probably have to show up and take a written test at some point. Like I mentioned, you're probably going to have to show up and take a physical ability test at some point. You're probably going to have to show up, take an oral interview, and all that other fun stuff that goes through the process. But here's the thing, you can't get hired until you take tests. And I know a lot of people, I hate this, say, I'm not ready, Steve. And I'm like, what do you mean you're not ready? I took my first firefighter test before I even started my 2-year degree program at Chabot College. And that was strange for a lot of people. Yeah, I took my first test before I started any college classes. I wasn't even an EMT yet. Fine, because the department I applied for didn't require EMT, firefighter 1, or paramedic. They just required 18 years old, which I was, and a high school diploma, which I had. What do you got to lose to take the test? I love it. I ask people, so what do you got to lose? Well, I don't know, maybe I'll fail it. Awesome. People think I'm being negative or pessimistic. The best part about failure, if you're smart and you're talented and you have a brain, is that you can hopefully learn from your mistakes. I want you to fail something. And now you're gonna, I'm not being mean, please don't get butthurt over this. The best part of failure that has happened to me over life is failing, because it's been a very humbling moment to fail something, because then I can dust myself off and go, wait a second, what do I need to do differently next time? Unfortunately, a lot of people fail something the first time and they say, screw this, I'm giving up, this is BS. Well, that's probably their attitude that we don't want on the job anyway. We want tenacity, persistence, people that are not willing to give up the battle. It took me over 50 tests over the course of 4.5 years to get my full-time career job. 50 plus tests, 4.5 years. Some people give up in less than a year, in less than 10 tests. I've seen people give up in less than 5 tests, but hey, that's their choice. They probably weren't cut out for it anyway. Take the darn test. What's the worst that could happen? Meaning, what do they do? Offer you a job? Maybe. I've seen people get hired off their first test. It's rare. What do you do? Say no? Well, sorry, I can't take the job. Thank you, City of Oakland, for offering me the job in my first test. But you know what? I have to finish up my paramedic program, or I need to finish off my degree. I hear people say those things on occasion. Huh? If a fire department offers you a job as a firefighter, because you obviously met the requirements, as maybe minimal as they might have been, they offer you a job, they're going to now pay you a job that you can hopefully stay in for 20, 30, 40 years, as long as you don't do anything stupid. They're going to pay you, give you good benefits. Take the darn job. You can always go to another department and apply at another department if you don't like that one department. And think about it. It's easier to probably get a job once you have a job, because you already got your foot in the door. You've already passed an academy, passed a background investigation, passed a psychological evaluation. They know you can do the job. That's why a lot of people sometimes take a job at one place and leave for another. I'm not encouraging that, but sometimes it happens. So take the darn test. And if you fail, awesome. I failed one of my first written tests. It was embarrassing. I was a college graduate with a 4-year degree, and I'm going, how do I fail a fire written test? Well, you know what? Best part about that was, like, I'm not going to let that happen to me. I'm going to start doing some research, do my homework, so I never fail again. And I never did. And my 70% passing score that I got to get 70 to pass, I obviously didn't. I got those up to the high 90s. Why? Because of persistence, tenacity, and I was trying to do my best to learn from that. I failed one of my oral interviews. That sucks to fail something, but you know what? It's a very humbling moment that, you know what, I'm never going to let that happen again. So again, take the darn tests. What's the worst that can happen? But you can't get hired unless you test. Plus, some departments only test every 3, 4, 5, 6 years. So if you don't take that test today for the dream department, let's say you live in Chicago and want to work for the Chicago Fire Department, guess what? You don't take that test, the next Chicago test might be 5 years from now or 10. Who knows? City of Cleveland a number of years ago, 11 years in between testing. So they tested, say, one day, they didn't test again for 11 years. You're SOL if you were waiting for that next test and you want to work for the City of Cleveland. So that's why take the darn test. Stop by firehouses. Again, you don't stop by a firehouse to get a job. Don't get me wrong. You stop by firehouses to start building up relationships, to start networking, to start meeting professionals that are doing the job that you want to do. Because at a firehouse, you typically have different ranks of personnel, firefighters, engineers, company officers that are lieutenants or captains, maybe battalion chiefs that are housed out of that firehouse. So your goal is to stop by a firehouse. We'll talk about firehouses in future episode, meaning what to do when you go for a visit, because it's not just stopping by and saying, hey, tell me everything I need to know. You know, there's a game, you got to play the game. You got to stop by firehouses, number one, to introduce yourself and to help start building and maintaining relationships, as I mentioned. Plus, it's a good network. Plus, think about it. They're doing the job that you want to do. So when you knock on the door of a firehouse and say, hi, my name's Steve Prziborowski. I live down on whatever street down the way over here. I want to be a firefighter. Can I take maybe about 20, 30 minutes of your time and maybe pick your brains for a little bit? The majority of the time, unless they're really busy, the firefighters are going to say, hey, come on in, because they were in your shoes at one point. So they're going to sit you down and say, okay, kid, what have you done? You know, why do you want to be and they're going to start asking you questions. So you better be prepared. Why do you want to be a firefighter? You know, how have you prepared yourself? And you may go, oh my God, they're asking me all these questions. Hey, they're not trying to be jerks. They're trying to help you out, because those are the same questions that you're probably going to get asked during the oral interview. So they're trying to help you out. So you're going to be nervous. We get that, but they're there to help. They're not there to be jerks. They're there to pass on their knowledge and their experience because they've been doing it before. So pick those brains, especially of those newly hired firefighters, especially the newly hired ones, because they're the ones that know what's going on most recently. So when you go, hey, if I'm testing with the city of Fresno, what can I expect on your testing process? And hopefully when you visit a firehouse, you've already looked at their website and done your homework, but again, we'll talk more about that. But you ask those questions because, again, there's a lot of benefit by stopping by firehouses, because you just get your foot in the door, and it's just valuable time spent. Now, number 8, get some life experience. I don't care if you're 16 years old, 26, 36, 46, age doesn't matter. You usually have to be 18 though in most departments. And most departments don't have a maximum age. Get some life experience, because think about it. All of a sudden, it's a lot like going from high school ball to the big leagues. Think about that. Here you are, one day you're the star of your high school basketball team, football team, baseball team, whatever sports team. And then you don't go to college because you're that good, and you go right to the big leagues, the pros. They give you this multi-million-dollar contract to go to the pros, and you go from maybe being darn near homeless at home and, you know, struggling to get by with your family who's trying their best to provide for you. And then the next thing you know, you're getting paid multi-millions of dollars, and that is a big challenge. And we see that happen in the professional sports world a lot, where you get some of these athletes that can't handle the newfound fame, the newfound influx of money. And some of them are bankrupt, amazingly, you know, a $20 million contract, and they're bankrupt within, you know, a year or two for whatever reason. And how does that happen? Well, granted, you're not going to make millions as a firefighter, but that can be challenging, especially if you've never had a job, because if you think about it, this is a blue collar job, and your first day at the firehouse, after your captain basically shows you around, tells you where to put your gear, your first day is going to be, all right, kid, clean the toilet. That bathroom's yours, and the next bathroom. So clean the toilets, do whatever it takes to get those things spotless. Huh? And then, by the way, you're cooking dinner tonight. What? I've never, so you better have some basic home economics skills, because you're going to be the one that's doing a lot of that work. So life experience, home experience is good. But again, you got to have something to offer, because when you start working with that new crew, when you're fortunate enough to be hired, they're going to want to know about you. And The more life experience you can get, the more things you can talk about during an interview. Because when you're asked that question in an interview, which you usually are, first question, how have you prepared yourself to be a firefighter? The oral board does not want to hear you say, well, I'm 18 years old. I really have never held a job in my life. I've lived at home with mom or mom and dad or whoever, which is not a bad thing. Many people do. I get it. Can't afford it. It's expensive, cost of living. I just pretty much just play games all day on the TV, and I pretty much don't do anything. So how have you prepared yourself? Well, I don't know. You're not going to do well in the process, because the oral board raters on the other side of the panel, they're evaluating whether they can work with you or not. And the last thing we want is high maintenance people, meaning I got to teach you how to clean a toilet, kid. I got to teach you how to check the oil on the rig. I got to teach you how to mop a floor, how to clean a window. Yeah, get some life experience. You can't go wrong with it. Plus, you get more credibility and respect from people. And again, life experience in anything. All right, number 9 must-do thing to become a firefighter. Start preparing for your background investigation. I mentioned earlier maintaining a clean lifestyle and background, and I'll talk again in a future episode about background investigations. When I say preparing for your background investigation, when you fill out the job application, it's typically a document that's maybe 2, 3, 4 pages. An application is stressful for some. Yeah, 2, 3, 4 pages of a lot of information about your job history, your educational history, a few things. For those that have to do a background investigation, now it's not just a 2, 3, or 4 page application. It's a investigation document that's typically anywhere from 15 to 30 pages of everything you've done in your life. Whereas a job application, like I said, is very brief. Job applications usually say maybe give us your most recent jobs, or maybe jobs over the last 10 years, and they only give you a few blanks. Background investigation, it's like list every job you've ever held. And then it's like list family members, list friends we can contact, list your credit history, list your finance history, list your arrest records, your tickets, your accidents. Yeah, background investigation packet is amazing. And it sucks the first time you have to fill it out, because it's like, oh my gosh, where do I get all this information? So on my website, one of the previous ones I mentioned in one of the first slides, ChabotFire.com, free stuff link. On the ChabotFire.com free stuff link, if you scroll down, I've actually got a background packet there that you can download. It's a Word document that's a standard background investigation packet. Each department uses maybe a slightly different one, but it's the same standard things they're going to ask you in a background. Your goal is to know that stuff before it happens. Meaning, let's say we're the city of Los Angeles and you're applying with Los Angeles Fire. You do so well in the written, you go to the oral interview, you do well there, you go to the chief's interview, you go to the background investigation. When you go into a background investigation, you're a limited number of individuals that they really want to hire. Doesn't mean that they'll disqualify you, or you get, that you're in like Flint, but you still got to, people usually don't. It's hard to fail a background investigation. Like I said, no one's perfect. The key to background investigations are being honest, not leaving things out, and not trying to hide things. Now, again, you may have done some bad things, but here's the thing. Let's say you're 25 years old now, and then, I got suspended from school. Well, how old are you? Well, when I was in high school at 16 years old, which was 9 years ago if you're 25, I got suspended from school for 2 weeks for fighting. Okay, that's not good. Okay, 9 years later, have you ever gotten into a fight again? Nope. I've learned from that mistake that I'll never let the same thing happen again. Ever since that point, I've never gotten into a fight. I've learned how to diffuse my anger. I've learned how to try to talk my way out of situations. That's the key to a background investigation, is number 1, admitting your mistakes, and then being able to show what you've done since then to probably encourage, or hopefully encourage, the fire department to take a chance on you, meaning you've learned from your mistakes. Versus, hey, when's the last time you got into a fight? Last week. What happened? Well, a guy looked at me wrong and gave me he gave me that mad dog look, so I kicked his ass. You probably got some anger management issues that we got to deal with that we're probably going to pass on you right now, nothing personal. So start preparing for your background pack. And like I said, I encourage you to go to ChabotFire.com, free stuff link, and then download the background packet. And then in a future episode, we'll talk about that. And then lastly, learn as much as you can about the fire service and get some hands-on experience. I share this earlier, and I'll share it again, time and time again. Don't just prepare for the test, meaning the hiring test to get you the job. Prepare for the job, the position, the career. Learn as much as you can about the fire service. You're fortunate now with the internet, social media. It's a lot more easier to do homework, do research. It's a lot more challenging too because of fake news or whatever else. And you may go, fake news? Well, think about this. If you go to your local fire department's website, let's say you live in, I don't know where, Chicago, Detroit, Seattle, Portland, Dallas, insert city name here. If you go to your local city website and you go to, say, the fire department, it's hard to keep that information up to date. So you may go to that website, obviously be familiar with it. Some are better than others when it comes to websites, but don't latch on to every single word or fact or figure because they may not be accurate. And it's not on purpose. They're not trying to screw you around or, do tricks on you or fool people, because transparency is critical in today's governmental world. But things change on a daily basis. So learn as much as you can. That's why before you go to a firehouse, I encourage you to do your research on the internet, social media, and then you stop at the firehouse. Get some hands-on experience, if for no other reason, just to find out whether this job is for you or not. That's why I say it's good to go to a college firefighter fire technology program that has EMT, that has a Firefighter 1 Academy, because you get a chance to do the hands-on skills. And you may think you want to do the job of being a firefighter or career, not job, but you may get through the skills and go, you know what, this ain't for me. I'm not good at this. Well, I'd rather have you find that out now versus when you get hired, because then that sucks once you get hired to get fired because you maybe shouldn't be the right person they hired, or it's not for you, and it happens, unfortunately. But get out there, learn as much as you can. Hopefully I'm hoping that the 10 things that I just shared are beneficial in some capacity. By all means, these 10 things don't guarantee you success, don't guarantee you a badge. And you may say, well, Steve, hey, nothing guarantees you a badge, but they'll definitely help point you in the right direction. It's like a lot of people, I hear this a lot. We did our college academy, we did a graduation online on Zoom because of the current coronavirus pandemic. It's sort of interesting doing it online, but we made it work. And before we did the graduation, there's all these family members and friends, most of whom never used Zoom before, which is a whole nother interesting conversation. But I remember having some people bring up family members going, oh, so now that these loved ones of theirs finished the Firefighter 1 Academy at Chabot College, do you guys help with job placement? Like, if you go to a lot of these technical schools, technical trade schools, become an airline pilot, become an airline mechanic, become a helicopter mechanic, whatever it is, repair computers, great careers available in the computer industry. A lot of these places have job placement programs. We don't do that at colleges. That's not our job, because here's the thing. Once you understand what a firefighter has to go through to get hired, we can give you the necessary knowledge, skills, and ability by, through an academy. For example, if you pass the academy, pass your EMT, meaning you say met the 80% standard on the written test, the skills, we can say that you demonstrated a basic competency level to do the job. Well, here's the challenge. To become a firefighter, you still got to pass the written test with 70% or above. And some can't even do that, even after they finish the academy or have a degree or even a 4-year degree. You still have to pass the oral interview, which still many cannot do that for whatever reason, or at least score high enough. Some don't do well in their backgrounds because maybe they lie, they leave things out, or they just have a whole train wreck of a background that they can't get away from. So the point is, we can't do job placement because, again, it doesn't work that way. So you have to be able to market and brand yourself, and more importantly, know yourself better than anybody else, because you're selling yourself a product. And you know what? You may have done some things that may keep you from being a firefighter right now, but it doesn't mean that they won't keep you from being one in the future. There's a job out there for everybody. Your key is finding that job. And again, I thank you for your time. As we transition here, thank you for the gift of your time. Here's my contact information. Again, my website's code3firetraining.com, ShabotFire.com, free stuff, a lot of good stuff there. I encourage you to connect with me on social media. If you go to my YouTube page or both the website, you'll see that I've done some 2-hour webinars, Master the Fire Service Testing Process, 25 Reasons to Hire You as a Firefighter, upcoming one of 21 Key Points to Assist You in Becoming a Firefighter. Those, like I said, are 2 hours in length. I've decided to do some shorter episodes, maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes, that are maybe a little bit more focused on certain topics. So like I said, I encourage you to hopefully go down some rabbit holes. I'm not the answer to everything. I'm not the expert in everything. I just have a lot of years of experience, as well as a lot of passion that I want to share to others and pay it forward on. I don't get paid for doing these. These are out of the goodness of my heart, because I was in your shoes at one point wanting to become a firefighter. So, this is my way to give back, and hopefully encourage that you all do the same at some point in the future. So with that, thank you for watching episode 2, hopefully watching episode 1, and I look forward to seeing you in future episodes. If I can be of any assistance to you, please don't hesitate to reach out and contact me. I work for the government. I'm here to help. Seriously, I enjoy helping others reach their career goals and hopefully succeed. So take care. Be safe, everybody.